Hey, what's up? This is Scott Tolinsky with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video, I'm going to give you a brief view into the code base of leveluptutorials.com. I saw some people on the web dev Reddit talking about different strategies for page transitions, and I wanted to show off some of the page transitions that I've recently done. For instance, on leveluptutorials.com here, if we go to the GoPro, we get this nice fade in. And if you go to store and go to any product, you'll see we get a similar sort of effect where the header sort of animates, slides down, this content fades in, and it makes for a really nice page transition. And this isn't something that is too difficult to do. Not to mention I have some other transitions on this site, such as these, that are all using similar kind of techniques. It's using the same library at least. So people are wondering how I'm doing transitions like this. Now I should mention, I'm not using the transition component in React Spring. If you want to see some code using the transition element in React Spring, you're going to want to head to React Spring's own documentation. It's top-notch stuff. They even have like code sandboxes. There's one, I believe, down here. I don't know if you go to up top here where examples and code sandboxes, there's one using React Router. It's a really nice thing to check out. So that's its own sort of thing. All I'm doing in my transitions is I'm running an animation that happens while the component mounts. So let's get into the code a little bit. This is that page right here. This is the Pro Sign Up page. And if we scroll down, the magic for pretty much everything is in these springs. Now, Spring is a component that comes from React Spring. It's a physics-based animation. And all I have to do is give it a from and a to. You'll notice that my from, I have a height of 100, an opacity of 0, and my to, it's ending height of 472 and an opacity of 1. And what happens is you basically get your props via a render prop spit out here as height and opacity. And check this out, I just have the billboard component, and all I'm doing is passing height and opacity into style. Could this be any easier? I didn't have to write beginning state, ending state, CSS. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. And this spring right here is what's generating the billboard, which is the background over here, right? So it's growing in height and it's fading in. So what about everything else? Well, everything else is just as easy. I threw a spring component with a slight delay, a 300 delay here, so that it's just a hair behind the billboard coming in, and then we go from height of 100 to 472. Although I'm not using height in here, it looks like this is just a copy and paste. Let me get rid of that. There we go. And you can see I'm just doing a simple fade. Opacity, there we go. And that's simply just happening on a div that is the Pro heading and H2. Now, I didn't necessarily even need a div here, but the child of these things can't be a fragment. So it has to be a div. And that's okay. Just throw this style on a div. It works. Next, I have another spring where it's the same business. It's going from 0 and then ending up at 1 for opacity, but then check it out. We also have a Y value, and now this Y value is going from 40 pixels to 0 pixels, and what that's doing is giving this a slight little bump up. You can see I'm actually using that inside of a translate right here. So the same deal, we have our component, then we have our render prop spit out here, and then we can use those values anywhere we want. We don't have to use it on the immediate thing right here. We can use it on the feature card right here and just throw it on the opacity or the transform. And you see I have a basic transition that turns on because check it out. This thing, when you hover over them, it gets this nice little hover going on, right? However, I'm animating these cards specifically. And if you have a transition on something you're animating with a React Spring, it's going to go nuts. It's going to go haywire. So what we do is we wait until the animation is ended. I'm calling a function on rest. So when the animation finishes, it sets state of end to true. So when the animation is completed, it's then going to set the transition property to a CSS transition. This allows me to have the CSS transition in there for user interaction, but not for hover. Now I could do some of this stuff on hover as well with React Spring. But it's already in here. It's easy with CSS, so why not? So this is pretty much it. You can see I have 3 separate springs, or actually 4. I thought I had 3. 4 is going to be this whole zone down here. And again, it's just transitioning the opacity here. Now you might be wondering why I broke this out into 3. I like to compartmentalize this as this thing is animating, this thing is animating, and this thing is animating, even if it's the same animation, same value, whatever. Now React Spring has a ton of other options, and I by no means have extended the library's capabilities with this. This is just some really basic stuff going on. So if you want some very dead simple transitions, keep in mind all I did, again, these aren't using the transition component. It's just setting a from and to. And when this thing loads, it just does it. Okay, this isn't mounting and unmounting or anything like that. It's just animating. Now that's to say you can do transitions with this library that mounts and unmounts and manages that stuff. It's using the transition component. You can see this, even this basic demo of it here is going to, let's see, toggle several different ones in and out here while it loads this thing. You can see click, click, click. Check it out. And this is managing the mounting and unmounting. These documents are a little bit hard to parse, but for the most part, you should see this working exactly like as it's expected here. So I really love React Spring. This is how I do all of my transitions in the site. And there's even more coming, some of which are going to be using the transition one. So if you want to see more of that stuff, that's cool too. Again, I don't have this code in a gist anywhere or anything like that, but this is not anything you really need crazy hand holding for. This is on React Spring's website. You can copy and paste it, and it's basically what I'm doing exactly here. Nothing fancy at all, but that's how I'm doing it. Animating components on load. I'm not using React Transition Group. I'm not using React Motion and stuff like that, but you can handle all of the same sort of use cases. You can do keyframe stuff. It's a super powerful library. Highly recommend checking out. If you actually want to learn this library, I have on the Level Up Tutorials store, Level 2 React. In this series, we cover a ton of stuff, from even dragging things and having that animation all managed by React Spring. So you can pull something over. We build like the Tinder interface. We build an animated modal, a lot of really cool stuff. So if you're interested in learning React Spring, check out Level 2 React. It's a full-on tutorial series from Level Up Tutorials, and it'll teach you all this stuff and more. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. I hope this eliminated one aspect of the new Level Up Tutorial site. And as the site grows and changes, I'm going to continue to do these code blogs if you want to see them. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.